is going on in the teenage brain? What makes teenagers be these teenagers that we have all these terrible stereotypes about? Can everyone see that? No? Alright, so here we have a cartoon from the New Yorker. Here's what's going on in the teenage brain. We got MySpace, Family Guy, PS3, Algebra, Instant Messenger, iPods, YouTube, Jessica Alba, Snoop, manga. What's that? Algebra. A little bit for algebra. Awesome. So, this is a cartoon, but in reality, what's going on in your brain is that the neurons, the brain cells that you had when you were smaller have sprouted a million bazillion different connections between each other. And those connections are at their highest, believe it or not, when you're about 6, 7, 8 years old. And by the time you become 11, 12, 13, those connections start disappearing. Right? So there's more connections in a child's brain than in your brain. And there's more connections in your brain than in my brain. It's pretty weird to think about. So here's a picture of nerve cells at a young age, right? That's when a child is born. Here's the picture of your nerve cells when you're about 7 years old. And here's a picture of your nerve cells when you're about 15. Now, does that make sense to anyone? Who said yes? Raise your hand. Be brave. Why does that make sense? Yeah.
Because, supposedly, you learn a lot better when you're a child and when you get older because your brain's just absorbing all of that.
Okay, great. Yeah, when you're a little kid, you learn a lot better, right? You're just absorbing stuff like a sponge. They say, like, you can only learn languages and develop your accent if you learn it at a young age, right here, right? When you become older, when you hit your teenage years, some of those connections that you made when you were a kid, they go away, they atrophy, right? And you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Not that you're all old dogs, but it's harder to learn stuff, right? And so the things that stick around here are the things that you practice and rehearse over and over and over. Right? So the moral of the story here is, once you hit your teenage years, it's use it or lose it. If you're not practicing things, if you're not constantly, rehearsing them in your head, those connections are going to go away because that's what happens to brain cells. Right? So think about, I don't know, a language. If you don't use that language, if you don't speak in that language, you lose it, right? If you don't play a musical instrument for a while, then you lose the ability to do it as well. It's the same thing with anything you'd study in school. If you're not practicing your writing, if you're not, working on your algebra, you're going to lose that ability if you don't keep it up. And that becomes especially important once you start losing these connections between brain cells. So, you're at a disadvantage because it's called pruning back. Your brain cells are being pruned back, which means you got to be really on top of it.